You are listening to No PC Allowed, aka No Political Correctness Allowed, and I am Mac Iverson. John Adams wrote this in 1780. There was nothing I dread so much as a division of the Republic into two great parties. Here's what George Washington had to say in his 1796 farewell address. He predicted that political parties would, quote, become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people and usurp for themselves the reins of government, destroying afterwards the very engines which have lifted them to unjust dominion. The following ideas will be, without a doubt, some of the best solutions to the entire stuck-on-stupid status quo intransigence that has been stifling and suffocating the United States of America for nearly 2.5 centuries. That problem being the political party system, now dominated by the Republicans and the Democrats. Three things must happen. First, we must pile drive elected MAGA patriots into political office to vote for massive reforms that strips away any and all perks from all representatives. In other words, we must only elect honest, good-hearted people, conservative Christians who both love and fear God. This will get the ball rolling. Then second, there must be massive campaign finance reform, making candidate fundraising far easier than it is today. Not harder, easier. And third, only then will we be able to abolish all political parties. We must then codify all this into constitutional amendment. So parties, especially two dominant political parties, are bad because over time they become radically and diametrically opposed, perfectly splitting almost 50-50 our entire culture, making any reasonable dialogue between the two impossible. Sound familiar? That perfectly defines America and the entire West today. Again, number one, at this point in our nation's history, the only way to solve this problem is for MAGA to win it all. Why MAGA and not the left? Because MAGA will work to unify eventually. The left will destroy any chance for even a watered-down, weak democracy to win because they have proven themselves to be unwilling to speak up for even the bare essentials of fairness and sanity. Minnesota corruption on full parade, for example. Also, the communist takeover of New York City and California, all controlled by one-party rule. Radical Democrats, based purely on their own stated policies, are opposed to free markets, freedom of speech, freedom to own guns, traditional families, incarceration of criminals, border controls, biological sex differences, and everything else that you can possibly imagine that is actually good and wholesome. Today, the left absolutely hates all of that. They hate you. Again, one of the greatest founding fathers of our great nation, George Washington, hated the party system because he knew it would funnel special interest money into competing columns to divide and conquer America. But this party division happened immediately upon his leaving office. He was a visionary. In fact, in his farewell address, he saw the storm clouds gathering when he warned specifically that political parties could become what he called potent engines for ambitious leaders, sources of jealousies and false alarms, and causes of riot and insurrection, and would eventually become tools of foreign governments to drag the U.S. into unnecessary conflicts. Foreign oligarchs have been using the two-party system to do that very thing now for decades. Look at the Vietnam War. The Democrats lost that war, and it was by strict party division. Democrats wanted out, period. Republicans wanted out too. But first, they wanted to win a decisive victory, which the Democrats thwarted constantly. Foreign oligarchs funded many Russian and communist sympathizers in academia and the media to fully support the Democrat Party, and insisted on unilateral surrender of all support for the embattled South Vietnamese anti-communists by stabbing them in the back by greatly reducing and then completely cutting off all funding and aid, even after 300,000 servicemen had already sacrificed their lives to control the spread of communism. To the left, the sacrifice of their very lives meant nothing. This communist strategy was usually the following. Number one, identify a real American division. Number two, intensify that division through propaganda and covert influence. And number three, reduce U.S. unity and global effectiveness. Again, number one, identify a real American division, which has always been present, especially since the Republican-Democrat division just prior to the Civil War. The South immediately became fearful and enraged by the election of Lincoln and hence painted the entire conflict with the blame going to the entire Republican Party. Both England and France came close to exploiting and blasting this division wide open by joining the Confederate side, had the South come close to winning independence. As a world power, the demise of the USA would have been a major prize for both expansionist Britain and France. Number 2, so after the division of America has been identified, step 2 is to intensify it through propaganda or covert influence. This is where China really shines. They have pumped billions of dollars into Democrat Party proxies whose main goal is to divide and conquer America from the inside without the Chinese even firing a shot. Most even mainstream Democrats are easily morally compromised because they view the USA to be a great evil. This makes further corruption of their party very easy because there are no more reasonable Democrats anymore. Can you name even one? I can't. Maybe John Fetterman. And that's about it. The entire party has moved so far left that they've left America. And again, that is by foreign design. Remember, America's greatest demon, George Soros, before he became truly dangerous to American sovereignty, was a foreigner. And no one individual has exploited and crowbarred open America's party division more than that proven evil lunatic, by funneling all his money into the evil demon rat party agenda. Chinagate and Huntergate were stellar examples of foreign interference. China bribes many politicians regardless of party, but can you imagine China trying to do this on such a large scale with anyone in the Republican Party? It is almost unimaginable. That's because the Democrat Party is so eager to please all the time. All this anti-Americanism has been showcased in the Demon Rat Party for decades. They have been openly hostile towards all things holy and good in America. This has made them easy, soft targets for foreign corruptors, as if they have flashing neon signs with arrows pointing into their deep pockets saying, in bold caps, "Deposit cash here for fast, filthy favors." The Democrat Party has turned into a high-profile brand name for foreign spies and wholesale bribery. It's sort of like looking at the Coca-Cola logo. As soon as you see it, you instantly know what it means and exactly how you can use it. That's exactly what the infamous Democrat donkey silhouette means to the global crime syndicate. And finally, number 3, reduce U.S. unity and global effectiveness. This is the final piece in the 3-piece jigsaw puzzle of foreign conquest. In other words, only an idiot would not be able to figure out how to use America's party system against all of us. As a consequence to all these foreign pressures, the true goal of any outside enemy is to create domestic conflict. And that's because domestic conflict greatly distracts from foreign threats. If America is struggling just to keep her head above the waves of a domestic tempest, then what's happening on the other side of the planet quickly takes a back seat. But the South China Sea, for example, is not totally divorced from the American experience in our complex age. So why is George Washington's opinion on political parties so important? It is because he voluntarily forsook permanent power when he easily could have attained it. He was one of the main heroes of the American Revolution. If he did not exist, there would have been no victory in all likelihood. He was so popular that he had a realistic opportunity of crowning himself King of America. In an age when kings were still beheading their political enemies, and the attainment of power meant everything to godless and narcissistic leaders, George Washington stood apart by insisting that not he nor any man was to serve as a godhead to our new republic. This echoes Benjamin Franklin's famous quotation to a woman who approached him at the conclusion of the Constitutional Convention in 1787. She asked, "Well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" To which he replied, "A republic, if you can keep it." A republic is as close to the opposite of a monarchy as you can get, because there is nothing passive about it. I know this is the ideal, but that is truly what it represents. A republic represents a society full of citizen activists. The most important political office is that of the private citizen. This is what Ben Franklin meant when he said, "We are now a republic, if you, dear listener, can keep it." This also means that we are to stay informed, vote, hold leaders accountable, and most important, fully engage in civic life. America's and the entire world's problems stem from humanity's desperate need to attain evil amounts of influence and power. This selfishness pedestalizes avarice and greed. According to the Bible, this is one of the main roots for all of humanity's problems. George Washington was focused on God and the Bible. That was his major focus in life. So if he was able to forsake the temptation of power and greed which bedazzled so many leaders before him by voluntarily stepping down from the lure of permanent power, then wouldn't following in his footsteps be the perfect way out of the swamp in which we currently find ourselves? We are fast approaching the 250th anniversary of America's independence from the tyranny of Europe, specifically that of Great Britain. Today, George Washington is still showing us the way out, which also means that this very topic of ridding ourselves of the modern tyranny of the party system is absolutely and unequivocally a taboo topic of serious and ongoing discussion. Well, if there's such a thing as free speech, and believe it or not, there still is, then why is it taboo? We can, technically, talk about anything we want. But if the powers that be hiding inside the fake news industrial complex do not want us to talk about something that will actually solve our problem of corruption throughout the entire Western world and dethrone them with the same stroke, then of course total free speech must be totally off limits. It's just too dangerous, obviously, because free speech threatens their positions and their money. So the elites, because many of them secretly hate our constitutional freedoms, don't outright ban free speech, but if they hear anything online that they don't like, they say something really manipulative and bullying, like this quote from Elon Musk. On X, you can have freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. Well, what's the damn difference if almost no one can hear your protest? That's like a podcaster whispering in a hurricane. Restricting reach is the exact same thing as restricting speech. That's exactly what Musk is doing to this podcast, No PC Allowed. And the really scary thing is, Elon Musk is supposed to be on our side. In spite of some progress, far too many people still get their news and cut and paste ready-made opinions from the multi-trillion-dollar conglomerate media complex. And if they refuse to talk about that which is easily one of the most important topics to completely destroying the Jenga pyramid of blocks, that being our corrupt party system, and if that one block that would help tear it all down is never discussed, if that one block or opinion is never yanked out, then this fake news pyramid of corruption will never come tumbling down. Therefore, some 80% of all the news we hear is either fake news or intensely filtered news, aka censored news, here in the United States of America. And the vast majority of Americans have no idea how censored news automatically leads to their own soft-headed, lukewarm opinions, which we should be on fire over. Insane crap like the LGBT WTF insanity and tolerance for the Islamo-fascists, those being two of the favorite beneficiaries of special interest deep-funneled corruption. My contention is they would have virtually no power without these two funnels constantly fighting each other, left wing versus right wing. The fear of the one leads to the fear of the other in an endless, twisting, tormenting loop of waltzing resentments, reaching higher and higher, which can only lose balance eventually by toppling over into civil war. And again, the Chinese-centered deep state that controls the global fake news industrial complex understands this completely, which is why they never breathe a word about getting rid of the party system, because, think about it, and this is just plain common sense, if special interest money doesn't quickly and automatically fall into these two tall, deep, massive columns of ready-made corruption, then the corruption flow has to slow down to a trickle. Corruption will lose all its supercharged exponential momentum practically overnight. And all that big donor money that only divides would have a tougher time going into everyone's pockets. Getting rid of political parties, by the way, can never be viewed as a long-term solution. Human corruption always finds a way. Multiple reforms must always coincide. But with no political parties to blindly follow, then these corporate and special interest donors with millions of dollars at their disposal actually have to slow down, stop, and consider who they will donate their money to. This means that leaders must stand firm upon issues that they truly believe in, and they must campaign for. They have to convince big donors where they stand on policies in order to win that money. But with effective campaign finance reform, these politicians will also have to convince the little guy voters to vote for them as well. Following only the big donors will no longer be enough to win. They must also appeal to the shrinking middle class. The forgotten man. Gavin Oldscombe, are you listening? Probably not. Silly question. This also means these corruptors will have to hunt and search hard to find sellouts in a country that finally decided it can no longer allow itself to be sold out to the highest bidders. Massive campaign finance reform is also necessary. And this is just common sense. We need to make raising money easier for candidates, not more difficult. If raising money from their local constituents is too hard, then politicians need to rely on special interest money. The more money involved, the more division, and the more corruption, because big, easy money always attracts crooks who love to launder money, recycling it again and again for even bigger, even easier money. Just look at the California teachers' unions and how they've ruined that state. The pièce de résistance of major campaign finance reform is to make sure there is no more permanent power draw towards D.C. How do we do this? By electing only MAGA patriots to office, high and low. MAGA patriots who believe in Thomas Jefferson's ideal of a part-time legislature and removing any and all perks from service, including any pensions whatsoever. There must be strict term limits, and they must be unable to piggyback any special interest employment onto their resumes upon leaving office. These reforms are guaranteed to make Washington, D.C. the unsexiest place on earth for the wannabe rich and the power mad. I can hear some of you saying, "Hey, that sounds absolutely crazy. We can never get enough MAGA patriots into D.C. to ever make that happen. You sound like a foolish dreamer." Allow me to ask you an incredibly profound question. If these power and money-mad politicians all went to chapter-by-chapter, verse-by-verse churches and Bible study every week, would any of them have gone on to become the scammers that they are? Any of them? The accurate, honest answer is probably no. I would venture to say that 100% of them would not. So who's to blame then? Isn't it us for not pushing hard for radical reform of Christian churches? The Bible says that we are the ministers of God. Our church pastor is not the minister. We are. The pastors are there to equip the saints for the work of the ministry for building up the body of Christ. Ephesians 4:12, which actually means you, dear listener. That's why I'm talking to you and why you are listening with bated breath. Is this plan ambitious? Certainly yes. Is it impossible? Certainly no. The Bible teaches us to have an incredible work ethic. Colossians 3:23 states, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." And don't ever forget, without vision, a people perish. Consider this. The inkblot nightmare that never ends called gerrymandering would be greatly diluted if we did not have political parties. Americans love sports. Our team versus the other guy. But that is no way to govern a country. Deep, serious problems never get solved this way. The USA is not a game. The welfare of this country should be almost everything to you. Loving God is first, and a close second has to be loving others, our fellow American brethren. This is why compassionate but biblically wise voting is so vital to us. 45% of American voters are registered independents. By the way, I do not have much sympathy for these people, but I do understand them. Let me explain. People are understandably sick of this two-party division, but rudderless, independent voting is even worse, because now that this two-party division has occurred, one side must win and one side must lose. After all, how can genuine reform ever happen when the split has already divided us so completely? More and more independent, divided interests can't possibly help. Some will cite ranked choice voting, or ranking candidates from best to worst, as a solution to rid America of our two-party stalemate. This only complicates election counting. Subterfuge still dominates. More parties just means more confusion, and more diffusion of effectiveness for desperately needed reform. This is the dead last thing that America needs right now. Here's two prime examples of just how screwed up this idea is. Australia and Canada both use ranked choice voting. And look at how deep state-controlled these two countries have become over the past few decades. Confusion always gives nations and cultures a leftward tilt, whether towards socialism or fascism because of voter desperation. Fascism is left-wing, because historically, it has always embraced governmental control of all aspects of a society. Fascism has never been right-wing, not even under Hitler. Fascism has never been conservative. Multiple parties might even be worse. Look at how messed up Europe has become. Every single country has at least 3 major parties. Many have 5 or 6 major parties. This allows for a tremendous dilution of the truth. If truth is objective, as Christians according to the Bible must believe, and it is our job and our pastor's job to delineate that truth from God's Word or the Holy Bible, then a variety of confused and competing philosophies will not aid in the recovery of a nation in desperate need of triage of the soul. Diversity is the opposite of unification. Diversity is perversity. In America, we have bifurcation, which, believe it or not, is not as bad as multifurcation, or a multitude of closely competing parties, with no one strong party having enough power to ever unite us in order to defeat the status quo which underlies all this deep-seated deep state corruption. We change America for the better by removing all congressional perks and pensions and turning Congress into a part-time legislature. And when their term limits are over, they go home to real jobs, like sales or real estate or stock trading or retail shops or farming or teaching or carpentry, anything and everything just as long as it's not politics. Now I can hear some of you saying, "Are you kidding me? We can't drain the swamp that much. There will always be corruption because we can never get them to vote away all their personal perks and goodies." This is where the real push begins for real reform, not just the Trumpian flash in the pan of here today, gone tomorrow. Because guess what? True leaders like President Trump and Charlie Kirk don't grow on trees. Therefore, genuine reform, in order to truly stick, must be codified into not just the law, but into our Constitution. What good is MAGA if it doesn't have genuine passion for solid, long-lasting change? Human nature being what it is, sure, we can get frustrated and clean it all up for a season, but that's only if we're lucky. The entire longevity of the USA is based greatly upon luck, or so it would seem. With Trump, we got very lucky. We missed the woke bullet of totalitarian disaster as closely as Trump missed that bullet in Butler. In summary, what did George Washington fear most from party division? He feared national division. What do we have today? Profound and deep national division. But a house divided against itself cannot stand. He thought parties encouraged selfish politics. What do we have today? Selfish, insanely narcissistic politics called woke. He worried about foreign influence. What do we have today? The Chinese are at the very apex of American corruption with bribery that is off the charts. He believed factions could weaken our constitutional republic. What do we have today? A nation that is suffering from stage 4 cancer of the soul. The United States of America is this world's last great hope hanging by a thread. Without at least the Republican Party to do battle with the demon rats, we would have all been doomed long ago. Be sure to watch the upcoming Angel Studios film called Young Washington in theaters everywhere, and learn about his inspirational genius of living truthfully and his uncompromising bravery. God bless America, and have a very happy 250th or quarter millennium celebration of the greatest nation ever conceived. You are listening to one of the most severely shadow-banned podcasts on earth due to truthful content alone. Regardless, be sure to subscribe, give us a thumbs up or 5 stars, or write a review and share. Do it now while it's fresh in your mind. You've been listening to No PC Allowed. I am Mac Iverson.